Hey, Wyoming High School, this is Mr. Retan, and this is your week 1 assignment. So I was going to take a few minutes and explain to you some things about what you need to do. This is actually my first screencast, so this is pretty exciting. So if I make some mistakes along the way, be patient. The first thing, you've obviously clicked on the assignment and you're in because you clicked on this video that you're watching. First thing you're going to do is you're going to tell me how you're doing. I'm curious how each of you are doing. I miss hearing all your good things every day. And I know this is a tough time for a lot of people. So feel free to share struggles and anything else that you're doing with your time. I would just like to kind of catch up and have you tell me a few things about what you're doing right now. So that's part 1. The second thing you're going to do after you've answered that question is you're going to go to a Desmos activity. So I have a link right in the assignment. You're going to click on that link. The learning goal this week is understanding some basic properties of reciprocal trig functions and inverse trig functions. So things like the graph of cosecant, the graph of tan. Also, what about inverse sine or inverse cosine? What do those graphs look like? So we're going to work on that this week. So the first activity is about the graphs of tan, cotan, secant, and cosecant. And then once you're finished with that, you're going to work on creating some notes. So the way you're going to create the notes is you are going to go in to your Desmos on your computer. I'm going to actually demonstrate right now. So you're going to go to Desmos, and you're going to graph each of these functions. So what I'm going to do for you is graph tangent and talk about tangent, and I'm just going to add that to your notes, and then you're going to do 3 other functions on your own. So we're going to click on Start Graphing, and then we've all done this. We're familiar with this. I'm just going to graph tan of x first. So we're going to type f of x equals tan of x, and there it is. If you did the Desmos activity already, you would have seen this graph. And then we're going to adjust the window. So I want to show everyone how to adjust our window as we do these graphs. So I'm going to click on the wrench, and then I'm going to move me over here out of the way. And as we adjust the window, I'm going to make the x-axis go. So I'm going to click on this x and make it go -2 pi to 2 pi. And then I'm going to count by pi divided by 2. And if you just type pi in, it will recognize that that's pi. And then for the y, we're going to go -5 to 5, and we're going to count by 1. So here's my graph of tan. And then I'm going to need to log in, and I've already logged in to my account, but you will want to log into your Google account when you're in Desmos. And then you're going to actually export your graph to your notes. So you're going to click on Share Graph. And so if you click Share Graph, and then you click on Export Image, then I'm going to make my line thickness, it's thinking, just a minute. I'm going to make it the thick so I can see it better as I look at my notes. Then I'm going to click on Download PNG, and then I say Copy to Clipboard. So I've done that all. Now I'm going to go back to the assignment, and in my assignment, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste that graph in my notes. So it's much larger than we really want it in the notes. So I'm going to shrink it down quite a bit as I think about that. Then one of the things that you want to think about as you create these graphs are what is the domain and what is the range of the graph. So remember, when we talk about domain, we're talking about the inputs, the x values. So domain of tangent. So domain, and you can see in this one, it looks like there are some walls, some vertical asymptotes. So I'm going to go back to Desmos, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So let's X off this And I'm going to actually make it projector mode on mine so it's a little darker. So as you look at that graph, you can see it appears, because of the window I used, I can see where those barriers are, where those asymptotes are. So the tangent graph is very cool. If we were in class right now, I would show you my tan dance. It's kind of like this, and then keep doing this, and you jump across the room. It's not going to be very effective right now on the video, but you can see there are walls. So what I'm going to do in Desmos is I'm going to type in x equals, and I'm going to look right about. This is another cool thing you can do. I'm going to say it's right at pi over 2 where that wall is. So so now how do I turn my pen off? Try that again. Okay, so at pi over 2, I'm going to say x equals pi divided by 2. And you can see that, yep, that looks about the right spot where that first wall is. And you could graph each of these. You can see there's one at 3 pi over 2 right here. So that's a vertical asymptote. You have a vertical asymptote at negative pi over 2 and a vertical asymptote at negative 3 pi over 2. So you have all these different vertical asymptotes. And if I were to scroll over, so I'm going to switch it back and scroll over, you can see that this pattern continues on and on and on. So it's an interesting graph. Remember, tangent is slope on the unit circle. So if we think about the unit circle, at 0, there is a slope of 0. And then at 90, it's undefined, or pi over 2. It's straight up and down. So these values make sense. Once I've thought about the domain, and then so it looks to me like the domain might be all real numbers except these places where we have asymptotes. So what I will type in my domain, I'm going to keep things simple, and you can too right now. I'm just going to say all real numbers except, and then I'm going to say x equals, and then we'll say negative 3 pi over 2, negative pi over 2, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, etc. Now, this definitely is not the technical interval notation that we're used to, and you could try to write it that way as well. But we're going to keep things somewhat simple because of our remote learning. So there's the domain, and then the range. Well, range, remember, is the y value. So this one looks like it's going forever down and also forever up. And I could verify that if I trace the graph, it's going to keep going down forever, and it's going to keep going up forever. So that I'm convinced that in this one, it appears, that the range is just going to be all real numbers. And again, you could write this as negative infinity to infinity, but that's going to be a little more difficult to type in here. So knock yourself out if you want to try to type the interval notation. So you're going to do the exact same thing. Oh, actually, I forgot one other thing. So the other thing after you type domain and range is you're going to type in a few other properties of tangent. So one of the things I noticed about tangent is it has vertical asymptotes at x equals, and so it's all these values. So I'm gonna highlight that, and I'm gonna just say it's all those values that we just saw. So oops, look out! Oh man. Okay, bear with me. I gotta undo what I just did. Okay, so it's gonna be all those values. I must have not copied it. So oops. So I'm gonna copy all this, and then I'm gonna copy it, and then I'm going to paste it down here. So we got all those values. Now I got 2 x's. But you get the idea. That's one property, and since it says a few, I'm going to try to think about one other thing. It looks to me like these are infinite discontinuities. So I'm going to have also say that we have infinite discontinuities. Same x values. One of the other things is I noticed that this tan of x is always increasing. And I'm just going to say except at the discontinuities. So these are some things that we could say about tan of x. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. And this is what you'll do on your own. You're going to graph cotan of x. You're going to graph cosecant of x. And then you're going to graph down below secant of x. And so those other three are on your own. So that's part of the assignment. So first of all, you're going to do the Desmos activity. Then you're going to graph these three other graphs and type in domain, range, and some properties, taking your own notes on here. Finally, you're going to also do a brief introduction to inverse trig functions. So there's a real good introduction video that I found on YouTube explaining kind of the basics of how to graph an inverse trig function. So you're going to watch that 10-minute video, and then I will be putting a Desmos activity link right here. And so you're going to work through that as well. And then you're going to share out at least a couple things that you learned and a couple of questions you might have about inverse trig functions. As we do these assignments, keep in mind that that you really, the sky's the limit. If you want to learn more, feel free to search things on your own and watch your own videos. This is kind of just an entry point to some important topics that we didn't talk about yet this year. So the other thing I wanted to mention, and it's a reminder in this assignment also, that on Tuesday we will be having our first Google Meet. Kind of think of that as a chance for you to just drop in and say hi. If you have questions or want to talk about specific math or classroom things, that's a great time. Otherwise, I would love to just see everyone there just to say hi. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, and take care. Thank you.